Hello, my name is Stephanie Rodrigues. I'm a student in the Honors Colloquium class at Cape Cod Community College, taken with Professor Barnes and Professor Scully. My research project is called The Rise of the American Indian Movement. The history of Native Americans is often forgotten when American civil rights are discussed. In the 1960s, American Indians were fighting to achieve civil rights in addition to the economic and political hardships they faced. American Indians were trying to obtain rights and preserve their native lands. This research project is a way to learn more about the struggles they endured and how organizing the American Indian movement benefited the rights and lives of their people, the different strategies AIM used to get the government's attention, the different occupation in various parts of the country, and how these occupations contributed to the movement's overall success. The history of Native Americans in the United States goes back to approximately 15,000 years ago, when the indigenous people arrived and settled in the region. This led to a wide variety of people and the development of different cultures, but also to intertribal warfare. Some tribes coexisted mutually through territorial agreements that decided which tribes would settle in a region. However, after several years of coexistence, the colonization of the United States by European powers disrupted the settlement of the Native Americans, leading to a significant decline in the group caused by multiple factors. The primary factor was new emergent diseases, which were likely to wipe out many people since remedies were unknown. These diseases also made it easy to overpower tribes and take their ancestral land. There were many one-sided treaties that not only took the lands of Native Americans, but their rights, citizenship, culture, and sovereignty. The American Indian movement was developed as one of the significant strategies used to provide a solution to the multiple challenges that Native Americans faced within society. AIM was founded in Minnesota in 1968 as a grassroots Native American movement. Its goal was to end the group's systemic oppression, such as high poverty rates, police brutality, and improve education of Indian children. These included the different one-sided treaties of the government as a strategy to facilitate the assimilation of Native Americans. The high rate of unemployment among Native Americans was attributed to segregation in education opportunities, economic segregation, and preservation of the indigenous culture. The propagation of the movement can be attributed to the 1956 Public Law 959, Indian Relocation Act, and the Indian Termination Act. The formation of the above policies led to a large-scale movement of Native Americans to urban centers searching for economic opportunities, consequently leading to urban Indians. As they moved to the urban centers, the American Indians embraced most of AIM's goals and objectives. The occupation of Alcatraz Island lasted 19 months and was due to the Sioux Treaty of 1868. It stated that American Indians would receive land no longer used by the government, which was once theirs. When the Fame prison was shut in 1963, members of AIM and the National Indian Youth Council occupied the island under the cover of night. AIM began negotiations through a manifesto that was addressed to the Great White Father and all his people. The group made their intentions known regarding the land ownership and usage. The activist group insisted that the Native American occupation of the land was not illegal since the land was already theirs. The group also pointed out that they didn't mind the tough living conditions in the region since they had already experienced similar living conditions at the mercy of white settlers. They wanted the deed to the island, which the government refused. The publicity they received made this protest successful, which was detrimental with getting courts to side in their favor regarding rights and laws. People were more aware of the issues Native Americans faced. In March 1972, profound activists of AIM, Dennis Banks and Russell Means, collaborated with the Rosebud Sioux tribe to form the Trail of Broken Treaties. They would travel as a caravan of automobiles, taking part in political protest across the country, ending at the White House. A 20-point manifesto titled The Trail of Broken Treaties had multiple demands, including the restoration of the treaty-making process, recognizing treaties, returning 110 million acres of land to the rightful owners, and federal tribal relations reforms. They had intended on delivering the manifesto to President Nixon, but he left the country, thereby derailing the process. AIM held a meeting at the Bureau of Indian Affairs headquarters to discuss the unexpected situation. BIA guards attempted to remove AIM members forcefully, leading to the tension that resulted in the occupation of the BIA building for 1 week. President Nixon decided to a peaceful strategy to end the occupation, including the formation of a task force that would review the manifesto, conducting a review of Indian policy over a period of 6 months, and a provision of $66,650 that would ensure that protesters travel back safely to their destinations. The task force rejected the provisions described in the 20-point manifesto. However, multiple aspects of the manifesto became the foundation of Nixon's self-determination plan aimed to bring changes to the situation of Native Americans within the United States. In 1973, AIM members led 200 Oglala Lakota in the Wounded Knee, South Dakota occupation. This location was symbolic due to 300 Sioux Native Americans being massacred in 1890 by the U.S. 7th Cavalry. The reason for the occupation was to remove Richard Wilson as tribal president because of corruption. The protest was also to open treaty negotiations the government had failed to honor. Heavy gunfire ensued a day after the Wounded Knee operation began between AIM members and the federal marshals that surrounded the areas. A U.S. Marshal was shot, which resulted in him being paralyzed from the waist down. A Cherokee tribe member and an Oglala tribe member were killed as well. This occupation, like the occupation of Alcatraz, drew attention to the Indian rights and sovereignty. The government didn't honor broken treaties. However, some of the tribes won major settlements at courts involving tribal land claims. The National Indian Youth Council was founded in 1961 and comprised of American Indians who were either in college or recent graduates. Clyde Warrior and Mel Thon were the two principal founders. The use of direct action by the NIYC inspired other Native American civil rights organizations such as the American Indian Movement. Occasionally, the NIYC worked in collaboration with AIM, especially during the occupation of Alcatraz. The Red Power movement sought the rights for Native Americans to make policies and programs for themselves while maintaining and controlling their own land and resources. It was centered around mass, militant, and unified action. The organizations involved include the American Indian Movement, the National Indian Youth Council, the Women of All Red Nations, and the International Indian Treaty Council. The occupations they were involved in include the occupation of Alcatraz, the Trail of Broken Treaties, occupation of DQ University, and the Wounded Knee occupation. AIM ended up becoming very successful in different ways. They helped Native Americans find the will to fight after oppression had silenced their voices for so long. They were able to gain international attention to their causes, which led them to eventually help indigenous people of Central and South America. They've protected the rights of Native nations to include sovereignty laws and treaties. The Indian Health Board was founded by AIM, and legal rights centers were created due to AIM support. AIM has also ensured the U.S. government has held their end of treaties, such as the return of native lands that were abandoned by the government. Schools were founded by AIM, which provided culturally based educational alternatives to Indian children. Another example was Nixon's self-determination plan aimed to improve the situation for Native Americans, the return of millions of acres of land to the natives, and support for a tribal rule that allowed them to embrace their cultural heritage. Based on these achievements, the American Indian Movement emerged as a successful movement in the fight for the American Indian community's civil rights. Thank you for watching.